Hello and welcome to Bear Football here on the Bar Room Network. John Buffone alongside Aldo Gandia and Danny Shimon pinch hitting for Tyler Ellis today. Gentlemen, the Bears get their first win of the season, a big 20-17 victory over the Cincinnati Bengals. A lot to unpack on this one. Justin Fields could be the starter here moving forward, depending on the injury of Andy Dalton, and if Nagy thinks this is the right time for Justin Fields to go on as the starter. The defense coming up big with 3 consecutive picks off of Joe Burrow, and yet, even though they were +3 in the turnover column, it was still a 3-point game. But let's go off of immediate reactions off the game. We'll go around the horn. Aldo, you go ahead.
Well, I hope that people are not down on the rookie quarterback and start with, the Bears drafted another loser and so forth. You've got to remember that all of the first team snaps went to Andy Dalton and have for quite some time. So it's not like Justin Fields had the full week of preparation, and he made a number of mistakes. He made some penalties, a couple of penalties on false starts. He threw a terrible interception. And so he didn't look as good as we wanted. And he had a touchdown pass that it went through A-Rob's hands and so forth. But the bottom line is this guy is unquestionably talented. Whatever flaws you saw today are going to be corrected. And if indeed the Bears coaching staff thinks that Justin Fields should be starting next week, they should make a decision as quickly as possible. That way he's got all week to prepare mentally and physically with that playbook.
What'd you see, Danny?
I agree 100%. Aldo, I mean, remember, guys, this guy's been taking scout team reps, not even first or second team reps. He's taking scout team reps. Basically, what that means is he's been the opposing quarterback for the defense, for the Bears defense at practice. So he hasn't worked with these guys at all. I mean, he came in there and he threw, Aldo, you're right, that throw to A-Rob, perfect touch on the ball, drops in, I call it a bucket throw right into A-Rob's hands. That should have been a touchdown right there. There was another couple of throws to Mooney, where I think Mooney could have made the reception as well, just a little bit higher than he probably would have liked, Fields, that is. But again, comes off cold off the bench. Does I think an okay job. Yeah, and I think those false starts, I think some of them were on Mustipher, because I think he was expecting the snap and he was rocking back for the ball, but Mustipher wasn't giving it to him. Now, again, Dalton and Fields both have different kind of cadences, so that's something that the offensive line is going to have to get used to. So I think I kind of throw those to the side there. Just the offensive line working with Fields, those should be cleaned up. But that last drive, if it wasn't for Fields' ability to escape pressure and get a first down with his legs, that ball is going back to Cincinnati. Obviously, the Bengals have the momentum now, and this could have been a different game. This could have been a loss for the Bears, so we don't know. But he's able to get away from pressure, use his legs, get that first down, continue that drive going, and then that last first down from David Montgomery, that man runs like a man possessed, and I love Montgomery. He had 20 carries today for only 61 yards, but they were tough, well-earned yards. And I think Montgomery's developing into a hell of a running back for the Bears here, a bell cow type of running back. The defense, I love what they're doing today. They're playing, the adjustments they made today were kind of subtle. Obviously, Shelley was in there at nickel corner, got lost in coverage a lot for my liking, but they're playing more of a shell coverage in the defensive backfield, and they're playing stunts and loops up front with the defensive line. They're blitzing Roquan Smith, who, when we've seen in the past, guys, when Roquan blitzes, he is unstoppable in terms of coming down and creating turnover sacks, whatnot. Blackson got in there today. For me, he was physical up front. He's a better option. If you're gonna pull out Eddie Goldman, he's a better option than the rookie Tonga for me. Physical up front was a presence there, and obviously then comes up with that picked the tip ball interception at the end as well. So overall, not a clean game. Defensively, I like what they're doing. Offensively, now if Fields is a starter, now you have a little bit of a base here to work off of.
Yeah, and I think out of all the scenarios we thought that Justin Fields would be installed as the starter, this was probably the worst case scenario for Matt Nagy, because whether it was going to be from week 1 where he gets the first team reps, or week 4 or wherever, you wanted to be able to control that. You wanted to be able to pick and choose when you wanted to put Justin Fields in. Now with the Andy Dalton injury, you kind of had to put him in there. So you had to put him in there without any reps, not without preparing for this ball game. So given the circumstances, you see the athletic ability out of Justin Fields. You see the dynamicism that he brings to the offense. So we'll see first of all, how serious Andy Dalton's injury is. 2, if Matt Nagy's going to say, no, Andy's still our starter, he's going to be our starter against Cleveland, or if they're going to say, you know what, we had to throw him in, he didn't drown, so let's just make this guy our future right now. So Aldo, moving forward, they got the Browns next week. And so what are some of the things this team definitely needs to clean up? Because I have a few in mind, but I want to hear you talk about it first, because I don't think you can be +3 in the turnover category and still only win by 3 points.
Yeah, exactly. Well, like I said in the halftime show, you've got to clear up the mistakes. That second series of the game, there was the 3 penalties on the Bears offense. That's just unacceptable. That cost the Chicago Bears points, at the minimum 3 points. And the way they were executing when they weren't being penalized, it looked like they were going to just storm downfield and add another touchdown. So that's first and foremost with the offense, is cleaning up these penalties and these boneheaded plays. There were some even on the defense with Robert Quinn hitting Joe Burrow when he's completely out of bounds. I mean, these are the boneheaded plays that can cost you games. And we're really fortunate to come away with a victory when you commit all of these mistakes. So that's first and foremost. And I hope Coach Matt Nagy really takes them to task. They're probably celebrating right now in Club Dub, and I don't begrudge them for that. They should celebrate victories. That to me is cool. That's their room. We should stay out of it. We were told by a Chicago Bear player on one of our shows, hey, that's our thing, so you guys shouldn't even been talking about it. And that's cool. Stop sending video out, and that'll help us stop talking about it. But go ahead and celebrate. But on Monday morning, when the tape is being looked at by all the Chicago Bears players, Matt Nagy and the entire coaching staff has to be really strenuous with these guys about these boneheaded plays, because you're not going to have more victories than losses if you continue that kind of behavior.
And Danny, kind of moving on from just the mental errors, there were some things with the receiving core, like you'd mentioned some balls that hit off of Mooney's fingertips. You talk about A-Rob. That should have been Justin Fields' touchdown, first touchdown, boom, dropped it right in the breadbasket. I said at the halftime show that if they wanted to, if Justin Fields was going to be the starter moving forward, they had to really get their offensive playmakers involved a little bit more, because even though Andy Dalton was efficient, we weren't seeing a lot of targets going Allen Robinson's way. And so whenever they targeted Allen Robinson on the big play, it hit him right in the chest, and a couple of balls off of Darnell Mooney's hands. What does do you think that the receiving core has to step up to help? If Justin Fields is going to be the guy moving forward, the receiving core is going to help him out a little bit.
Exactly. I mean, the tight ends as well, the big offensive pass interference on Cole Kmet, it's got to be cleaned up as well. The offensive line, to me, John, I got to go back to that, because the interior, Sam Mustipher particularly, and James Daniels early in the game were really being ragdolled by number 65, the defensive tackle for the Bengals. I mean, they're now winning up front with any sort of physicality whatsoever. They're actually getting blown off the football. So got to start up front for me with that offensive line. Got to continue cleaning it up. Tackles had an okay game. Fetty was called for a false start earlier in the game, but I think Peters was okay for the most of the game. But yeah, in terms of the receivers, A-Rob, pretty short-handed. That was just, I would just call it just and maybe the corner got in his way, kind of, got in his vision there, and he lost track of the football, momentarily, and that ball went through his hands. But that typically is a touchdown to A-Rob, 9 out of 10 times. Mooney also is a pretty sure-handed. Again, that's going to be just coming with reps. We're working with Fields. If Fields is a starter, I think once they have reps with this kid in practice, I think that's going to all be squared away. But yeah, again, just got to make plays for this guy downfield. Got to protect up front for him. We just saw today, if you give him some time, and the one thing with Fields, I must say, and I tweeted this earlier, his progression in the pocket was much slower than what I'd seen in previous games. Now, it's probably because, like I said, he was running scout team. So he was not really, he hasn't been running much of these plays at all, if you will, during the week of practice. So we'll see if he is a starter, if he gets a full week of full reps as a starter, we'll see how he comes out next week. And I do expect him to be better. But again, that defensive front for the Browns is pretty good. And if the offensive line is not going to be able to, hold up, man up, and at least hold their ground, it might be a little bit more difficult for them to go ahead and move the ball.
I just quickly, I do agree with Brummy Bear, though, that the offensive line did in most plays. I mean, they didn't have a flawless game, but they did do a good job with pass protection today. The running game, the run blocking wasn't always pretty. If you look at the yards per average, 3.1 for David, 3.1 for Justin, 3.0 for Damien's 2 carries. Andy Dalton led the team in rushing average. How about that for irony? So the run blocking could have been a little bit better, but overall, I thought pass protection allowed the quarterbacks to make plays, and there just should have been more plays. But unfortunately, some of the offensive line were responsible for some of the dumb penalties. Like I said, in the first half, you had a Feedy with a false start. You had James Daniels with a holding that made it 1st and 20 when you were getting into the other side of the football field, into the Bengals side of the football field. So all very disruptive, and it led to no points on a 11-play drive. So those are the things that they've got to clean up, that offensive line. But I hear what Danny is saying, that the middle of that offensive line, which was considered a strength coming into this season, isn't playing up to the potential and promise that they have made in the past.
For sure. And I want to switch gears over to the Bears defense, because I think that's a big storyline of this game. We talked about, and I was dead wrong on this, because I said this week, if Robert Woods, Cooper Kupp, and Van Jefferson were able to just run wild over this secondary in week 1, what were T. Higgins, Tyler Boyd, and Jamar Chase going to do? Well, they held it down pretty well, with some outliers there, obviously. But Joe Burrow passed for 200 yards, 207 yards, and 3 interceptions with those 2 touchdowns. So being able to really control and not let those big chunk games big chunk yards really take it out of them like they did last week. So they had a little bit more of a pass rush. The secondary obviously stepped up their play. Duke Shelley might be he's going to need a little help moving forward. But as far as Kindle Vildor, Jalen Johnson balled out. Eddie Jackson finally hit the switch. He played like the Eddie Jackson. Maybe he listened a little bit. Maybe he's tired of telling us to stop booing, and maybe he's doing something to help us cheer. So he obviously did that. He did that this game. So defense, I thought, really stepped up. 3 passes, 3 interceptions. Makes you reminisce about the 2018 Bears a little bit. But I thought that they played a lot better, and I wasn't sure that they were capable of playing that much better than they did last week. So, Aldo, what are your key takeaways from the defense this week?
Well, I love the way they controlled the line of scrimmage. I mean, they were overpowering the offensive line, and that's a big take. And we saw Khalil Mack with his first sack of the season. And in fact, I think I got that video almost queued up here. Here it is. This is Khalil Mack's first sack of the season. Go ahead, Danny, take it away. You do the film analysis.
Yeah, first of all, this is what I love to hear up front. Subtle changes up front, right? And a lot more tight end and tackle stunts here. We saw here Akeem Hicks go upfield. We saw Khalil Mack come up, loop around, and get that sack. Earlier in the game, Robert Quinn got the similar kind of sack with effort. And that time it was Quinn and Mack on the same side, and they were running those stunts and loops up front. So I like that as well. We see later on with Roquan Smith blitzing on a delayed blitz coming off the edge as well. So there more stunts, more games up front by the defensive coordinator, Sean Desai. A little bit more blitzing than I saw last week. And also, like I talked about in terms of the defensive coverage, slight adjustment. They took out Christian, put in DeAndre Houston-Carson. You guys know I'm a big fan of DHC. This guy, whenever he's in there, he's making plays. He didn't really, dominate the stat sheet in today's game, but he's always there around the football. I like that adjustment there as well. And they were playing more of a shell coverage, guys. They were dropping back. They were daring the Bengals to go ahead and beat them over the top. And you saw, for the most part, they contained those talented receivers of the Bengals. There towards the end, we saw them get some, Chase got a touchdown. We saw Higgins get a touchdown as well. But I think for the most part, they did a good job defensively, just not limiting some of the big plays, keeping everything in front of them, and then running those games up front, creating some of that havoc, some of that pressure. 3 interceptions, you touched on it, John, earlier. 4 sacks, 9 quarterback hits. Back-to-back weeks now, I've seen Robert Quinn make a presence pop on tape for me. Again, that's initial blush. I haven't rewatched the game again, but I think Quinn is coming on. I think if you continue these type of loops and stunts and all that stuff, and just getting more creative in terms of moving Mac around, allowing the offense to kind of look and see where he's lined up, not knowing exactly where he's coming off of, and being able to prepare for him. We saw last week on our Bear Truth episode that Aldo and I did, where the Rams were not only bringing a tight end at him, but they also bring in a lineman ready for him to once the tight end chips him. Running back was in the vicinity, or a receiver coming in motion was also in the vicinity ready to chip on Mac. So he's still drawing the attention. You move him around, you continue playing some of these stunts and these games up front. I think that's going to continue to generate pressure up front and then also then create some turnovers.
Quick point, Jeremiah Atoshu was in on a lot of defensive snaps. I haven't seen the amount yet, but it looked like a lot of times he was in there with both Quinn and Mac, and he was scheduled to sort of be everyone sort of figured that he was going to be a backup to those guys, but having those three pass rushers on the football field at the same time, I think was also part of a good game plan by Sean Desai.
Yeah, and Danny, I wanted to get your opinion on the linebackers in this game because Joe Mixon really not a factor in this game. 20 carries, 69 yards. You didn't really see him take over a game that shows that he's capable of doing. What did you see from the linebackers today? Moving fast side to side, plugging A gaps, or was it a lot of the defensive line eating up the blocks as well?
Well, it was defensive line up front for me. Like I said, Blackson earlier was taking on some blockers there up front. He was being a physical presence. I love that about him up there. Now you get Goldman back in here again. That's going to be even more, fortuitous for the linebackers. But Roquan Smith, we saw that pick six, did a great job of kind of just baiting Joe Burrow into that throw. He drifted slightly. He knew where Burrow was going with that football. Baited him, drifted over, jumped that pass, picked it off, pick six, 8 tackles. He's listed in the stat sheet now with 5 solo tackles. Roquan Smith was all over the place. Obviously, Ogletree, I think, was also a physical presence in run defense. Went up there and created that turnover when he tipped that ball from Burrow and then ended up in Blackson's hands for the interception. So I think overall the defense had a solid game. Duke Shelley for me was the guy that really I got a bad grade for me in terms of the overall game. He got lost in coverage a lot. There were a couple times where some pick plays got him really thrown off his game there, and the receiver guard was wide open down the field. So overall, I think up front they did a nice job, and I hope they continue to build on that, going to future weeks.
Aldo, what do they do about that cornerback position? Because we saw them try Christian the first week, then they put in Duke Shelley this week. Do they need to go external on this? Do they need to go kick the tires on someone to say, hey, this ain't working internally. Let's see if we can bring somebody in that can plug this gap?
Yeah, I mean, they bring in guys every week for tryouts. They see who's out there in the street, and it's a revolving door of people coming in on Mondays or Tuesdays to get tryouts with the Bears. So I know they're going to continue to look at who's out there on the cornerback level. They're going to look at the waiver wire. They're going to look at people's practice squads and so forth. But first and foremost, what they're going to do is try to coach these guys up. The investment is there. They went through the entire training camp, learning the defense. There's either draft investment or salary investment or whatever it is. And so it's the job of this coaching staff to get these guys going in a much better manner. But they did show kind of a lack of confidence in Duke Shelley when he was not active last week against the Rams. And instead they started somebody that they put on waivers after the Christians spent the entire training camp with him. We've already made fun of that enough, but I still laugh at it. So I do think that, there might be an answer on the outside, but hopefully the answer is inside with the improvement of those 2 particular players, Christian and Shelley.
What's your take on that, Danny? You think they're going to stick with this combo they got, or you think eventually we're going to see a new name back there?
Well, I like Christian but he showed in the preseason, but I like him more as a safety, as a guy that can come down, maybe cover bigger tight ends, bigger receivers in the slot. Not a normal, every down nickel back for me. I like Shelley more as a nickel back, but he's got to improve his coverage skills, his instincts, his ability to know his surroundings, his awareness and coverage. I think he gets lost a lot. There's a kid, Xavier Crawford, that doesn't he didn't play much today in terms of the defense. He's a guy that came out of Western Michigan. Who was a physical, tough guy. I saw him maybe, he's a guy that could probably potentially step in there and get some snaps there as well. So, but if you're going to go outside the organization, you're probably looking at and making a trade for someone's, 3rd or 4th cornerback off their roster, or picking up some guy off the, Jimmy Moreland was cut by the Redskins, and I don't know if he's still out there. He's still available. He's a guy that I like coming out of college as well. A little quicker, twitchier guy. His issue has been, he's a slight of build, so he might get injured a lot. So we'll see how he is in terms of physical stature. But, it's going to have to get better, because right now, you saw it toward the end of the game when the Bengals were making their comeback, Duke Shelley had a target on him. And whoever he was covering, that's where Joe Burrow was going. So and that's something that they're gonna have to shore up here a little bit better than last week. That's for sure. I like Shelley there better than Christian as a slot corner. Not that he was, tremendously more effective than Christian, but I'd say he's more better equipped, at least physically, quicker twitcher. Got that some of those quick twitch fibers to be able to stay at least in phase with these receivers. But again, his awareness and his ability to kind of fight off those pick routes and stay, in phase with the receiver downfield is going to have to improve.
I want to talk about the tight end position real quick, because you'd hope that they were going to get one of these two guys involved. You're hoping to see Cole Kmet take that next step this year. You're hoping to see him become the guy you drafted. He was your highest draft pick a year ago. And then you feel so strongly about Jimmy Graham, despite the fact you could save a bunch of money by cutting him, but you feel so strongly about having him on the team that you bring him back. Yet out of the tight ends, Cole Kmet has one catch. So do we have Matt Nagy queued up?
Not yet.
Not yet.
Please go ahead.
But I do want to, Aldo, I'm going to throw it to you first. I think one catch out of the tight ends. Now, Cole Kmet had one called back on an OPI, but really not involving the tight ends at all. Is that on the players or is that on scheme?
I think it was a scheme thing. I think, and didn't really have an opportunity to study the Bengals tape. And John Sheeran, the guest you had on Buffone 55, really didn't talk about the Bengals' effectiveness against tight ends in the middle of the field. But I think it was just sort of the flow of the game kind of got away. You want to get so many players involved. And the one play, unfortunately, where you get Cole Kmet involved and it's a big play, he's called for an offensive pass interference. And I thought that was just a not a good call. I didn't see anything there. Now, the replay, there weren't many good replays on it. There was just one replay from a distance, but I didn't see anything substantial there to call that back. But you're absolutely right. The tight ends have got to become a little bit more involved somehow. And Allen Robinson has to become involved more. He had, I think, 5 targets or 4 targets, just 2 receptions, I believe. Now, this one, oops, let me lower the volume on that. This one was the touchdown pass early in the game from Dalton to A-Rob, and that's just a beautiful bullet and a beautiful route run by A-Rob. But we've got to make sure this guy's one of your key offensive weapons, and when you're looking at the passing attack, he's a guy that should be seeing at least 10 targets a game to only get let me confirm how many targets it was that he got. He got a total of 4 targets, caught 2 of them for 24 yards and a touchdown. Now, again, we mentioned the dropped pass, but that was another play that there could have been a pass interference called on the cornerback guarding A-Rob. I think that's what disrupted his confidence from making the catch. Now, it's still on A-Rob. It's still A-Rob's fault. You catch 200 balls a day at practice, and part of going through that routine is to catch footballs when you're being disrupted and people are yelling at you and giving you a little shove and so forth. So he still should have caught that, but that should have been a pass interference on Cincinnati and the ball placed at the 1-yard line. But there are offensive weapons on this team that have not been fully utilized yet.
Yeah, Danny, do you agree that they should probably get the tight ends, especially if Justin Fields is the quarterback moving forward? Sometimes those tight ends can be a really nice safety blanket, kind of just getting comfortable in the middle of a zone sometimes. Would you like to see Cole Kmet a little bit more involved in this offense?
Yeah, I would love to see Kmet do anything other than just be a blocker in this offense. And Jimmy Graham, we're 2 weeks in a row now, we get into the red zone and Jimmy Graham doesn't even get a target. What's the reason why he's on this roster earning $9 million a year? Because he was a red zone threat, but yet you don't throw to him. He's not a first option on offense here. And when you get into the red zone, Jesse James, guys, is another guy that I think really brings another added value in terms of a pass catcher, a guy that can get downfield and make some plays. And we saw him and Fields have that connection going in preseason. So if Fields is a starter going forward, I like to see Jesse James get a little bit more involved here as well. But again, I don't want to harp on the play calling of Matt Nagy, but I continue to say there is just no rhythm to this offensive play calling. It's always up and down, up and down. The first half, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Aldo, I think Montgomery only had about a handful of carries, about under 10 carries for the first half. Whenever the guy was running, he was successful. He wasn't getting dropped back in the line of scrimmage, behind the line of scrimmage, I should say. He was getting some yards, and we keep talking about it. Even if you're not pounding the rock for a 5 or 6 yard clip every time, you got to at least continue with the threat of running the football, so defenses can go ahead and respect you, and you can be a somewhat well-balanced offense. So the tight ends got to get more involved. I know Mooney caught more passes today, and I know they went downfield a little bit more today than they went against the Rams, which I did like to see. But you got to continue to do that. Now, I did like the first play of the game was they max protected, and they went downfield. But unfortunately, there was nothing open, and Dalton went ahead and got kind of threw the football away. But you got to do more of that. But if you build a running attack and you sustain it, and now your play action gets even better. Now your read options get even more dangerous. Now that's where you suck up that second level of defense. You give your tight ends, your receivers running those crossing routes, a nice big patchy green grass area to run behind that second level. Now you got Fields or Dalton throwing the ball in there and getting some big chunk yards there. So got to continue to run that football and be a little bit more offense. I want to see more rhythm to this offense. And something, I don't know what you guys agree or not, but I don't like pulling Dalton when he's having a somewhat good first half and dropping in Fields for a play or two here. If you're going to put in Fields, put him in for a series. Start the series with him and have him end that series, good or bad or indifferent. Pulling Dalton in the middle of a series where he's someone has a team in a rhythm, offensively at least, and then now you pull him out and put in Fields. I don't like that. I'm curious what you guys think about that option.
I never liked the idea of having special packages for quarterbacks and switching them out, and kind of like we've seen this before. I think they did it in Philadelphia a few times with the number of quarterbacks they had. But I just don't like that if your quarterback's in a rhythm, and like we saw, they have different cadences. That can play games with your offensive line. That can throw off a bunch of timing for maybe receivers or tight ends. And so I've never been a huge fan of it. Now I like to see Justin Fields on the field, so I'll just grin and bear it. But I don't necessarily like whenever Andy Dalton's moving the ball and say, all right, let's just arbitrarily throw out Justin Fields to do some of these plays, because once again, I don't think any of those plays were just only Justin Fields could run this play. That's not true. Andy Dalton could have ran any of those plays that Justin Fields was in for. Now, is he a running decoy on some of those? Absolutely. And maybe that's why he should have been the starter from the get-go. But that's neither here nor there. I'm not taking anything away from Andy Dalton. He played well enough. So I'm just not a big fan of it. Aldo, do you feel any differently about that?
I think, when Andy Dalton is in a groove, I don't think you should take him out. But if he's just doing okay, then I don't have a problem with Fields coming in for a play, preferably more than a play. But I don't have a problem if Dalton is playing like he did against the LA Rams. I don't have a problem Justin Fields coming in and giving a little boost with either a designed play that gets him running. Here comes Matt Nagy.
We're excited about it, man. I think that
he cut you off.
Yes, he did.
The defensive guys that come out here and get 4 straight turnovers. We talked about the turnover battle, the takeaway battle, winning that 4-1, getting after Joe Burrow, great quarterback, affecting them up front, and taking advantage, of these opportunities. You got it when you win the turnover battle. You usually have a great shot to win. So Eddie had the forced fumble, 38 picked it up. Gibson. Roquan with the pick 6, Jalen with his interception, all consecutively, right? And ending it with Ogletree creating some pressure to get the ball, and then Blackson with the pick. I thought that one of the things that we challenged our guys this week was to be able to swarm, run around and fly around and swarm. And I felt that down there. That was awesome. The sideline was going crazy, and it felt good. That's the part that we liked. Being able to not take advantage of that as an offense in the red zone states the obvious. So big picture, when you look back, and I'll be ready to look at the tape and see the why part behind it, but I just felt like there was a few 4 or 5 big plays where we missed some chunks, whatever it is, whether it was a penalty or whether it was something else. Offensively, 4 or 5 plays that, man, if we could just have those, and that's the if. Coulda, shoulda, woulda. And that's where, when you have a defense that's doing what they did today, we have to be able to get more. And that's where I think we're going to really hit that hard this week and see the why part. But that's the 2 things that jumped out to me. Yeah, so Andy's deal was he was running on the sideline. I didn't even see it, but I guess he was untouched when he went out of bounds. And so hurt himself a little bit there. And then he came out the next series, and I noticed on some of he took a sack, and I saw he was kind of limping a little bit. So, we got it looked at, and then he went in at halftime, and then coming back out, he would have been he was our backup. So he would have been able to go in an emergency. But as the quarters went on, it was getting a little bit sore. So we'll see. We'll know more here in the next 24, 48 hours as to where he's at and everything. But he's tough, man. He's for him to still go out there. And I thought the first drive, man, it was so great to be able to go out there and get that first drive right down the field and score a touchdown. And then we were kind of moving the ball, and then that happened. And so there's the example of making sure that you're always one play away, right, for everybody, every position. So then Justin came in, and I thought it was at the end of the second quarter. He did a good job with just trying to get in and out of the huddle, get the play calls in. And then there's things that we'll all learn from this second half, the third and fourth quarter. But at the end, all that said, you kind of feel the momentum shifting, and they get to touchdown, the long touchdown pass, and then we go 3 and out, and then there's a pick, and all this stuff's going. Well, you have the pick and then the touchdown, and now all of a sudden it's third down, and Justin makes a great play with his legs, and that's things that he can do. He can extend plays, and I thought it was a great effort by him to get the first, and then for us to get the first down with David in 4 minutes with the offensive line when we needed to. Those were the bright spots, So we got a lot of room to grow. Yeah, I'm pretty sure. Like, again, they're looking at that tomorrow in the next couple of days, but I'm pretty sure that we can rule that out. But I hate to, I didn't look at anything yet, so don't state me yet, but I'm pretty sure that's ruled out. Yeah. Did you just say good job, or do you harp on? No, we harp on it. And so we had the two big ones, right? To get, both of them were to get off the field. One was a taunting with clapping, and then the other one was the one out of bounds where we hit Burrow. So those affect you, right? And today to be able to come out with a win, but we talk about them with these guys, and I think, like, you fight so hard, and they played their tails off today. They played so hard, the defense. And then just that you look back at those two drives, they extended a little bit. So you hate to have that, but we're always talking about it. Our guys know it. They understand it. You just got to do it. So. Yes and no. Be smart, but play football. And like the last play there, when he got that first down, he was physical, and couple runs there that we had in the red zone where he had that run to the left. So just be smart. I mean, that's part of his game. He's able to do that and use his legs. But at the same point in time, depending on however Andy was, and then we always have an emergency quarterback too. Yeah. No, that's when we get with Sam and with him, we'll find out. Sometimes there's communication issues, whether it's on a certain cadence. Somebody thinks it's on one cadence and somebody thinks it's on another. Sometimes you just forget. There's different things that go into it. But again, that's all kind of a part of the process. And to have that happen in the red zone there, tight like that, it kicked us back five more yards and made it 3rd and 10 or 11. So we'll get that fixed. And what's that? Not yet. No, we'll get to that and see. There's always communicate. Like, somebody did something, whether it was, hey, it was on this. I thought it was on this. You heard that. But we'll get that fixed. Mm-hmm. Yeah. We have some things on the sheet that we like, and that whether it's type of play calls, based off of formations, motions, shifts, personnels, and stuff like that. When you get out there in this situation and you're the backup quarterback and you don't have all those practice reps and you get thrown in the mix, the last thing you want to do to that guy is make him start thinking about how to call formation, motion, shift. You want him to be able to play fast. So we had to adjust a little bit because of the situation of coming in like he did. And that's just all part of it. I'll come back. Go ahead. Mm-hmm. Right. Again, like I said with Justin, he's probably further along than we thought at this point right now. So if that's the case, then we feel good about it. And Justin has he's worked really, really hard to get to this point. Even today, like in that moment as a rookie coming on in that situation, super calm, super cool. And even after the interception, when that dropper he dropped in the zero look, made the play, he was very cool coming out there and knowing to try to make a play. But he's done that his whole career. Like, that doesn't fluster him. So that's a strength that he has. So we'll see where everything goes and where it's at. But for sure, if Justin, he's done what we've asked him to do, and we feel good with him. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, staying aggressive. That's kind of our mindset. Like, if you run the ball, you don't get it, then you make them use a timeout, but you're not even giving yourself a chance to get the first down. So we're going to stay aggressive with our mentality of how we do that. We want to be smart with the play call and what it is, right? And every play call, we talk throughout the week, and we know what we're going to and what we're not. But we're going to try to stay more on the aggressive side in that situation. Sorry. Yeah, those guys, I'm so proud of them. They took it personal. They were a little bit pissed off of how it went last week. They weren't happy about it. And when you're a good football player and you get pissed off, you normally come back and you play pretty well. And that's what they did. So now the challenge now is going to be to take that into the next week, right? And then become that dominant defense, which they know they can be. And then we got to do the same thing with the offense and then the special teams and have it complementary. But when the coaches on defense worked with these guys, they talked to them, they stayed positive with them. They challenged them. They challenged them all week long. And then you saw it in practice. And when they started swarming in practice and running around, if you do that in practice, you'll do that in the game.
All right, that was Matt Nagy. Danny, what were some of your takeaways there on how he described how the differences between this week and last week, but whether it be the defense or saying that they think Justin Fields is maybe further along than they thought? What were some of your reactions there?
John, that was the first thing I'm like, you've been telling me for weeks now that you feel Andy Dalton gives you the best chance to win now, but now all of a sudden that Dalton might be hurt. Oh, Justin Fields is much more, way more ahead than we thought he was going to be. When your offensive coordinator, Bill Lazor, came out during the week, said, hey, we have no problem with Justin Fields in terms of his preparation and all that stuff. He's ready to go now. So that's Matt Nagy kind of doing some double talk here as well. So depending, it sounds like if Dalton's okay, they'll still go with Dalton as a starter. But this might be a chance for Nagy to go ahead and just put in Fields, using this injury as an excuse. Hopefully, we'll see what happens there. But the other thing is with defense, and I agree. Eddie Jackson had a much better game today. I think it was better in terms of coming up and run coverage and run defense and being able to secure some of those tackles. Obviously, he created that turnover by stripping T. Higgins of that ball, creating that fumble that Tayshaun Gibson picked it up. But why weren't these guys swarming in practice prior to this week? Why did it take them getting embarrassed by the Rams for them to like, hey, you know what? Let's make some plays here. Eddie Jackson, you are a former Pro Bowl safety. You're one of the highest paid safeties in the NFL, if right up there. Why does it take the Rams game for you to be embarrassed and publicly being called out by the fans and by some other people on the media for you to come up and be like this? That to me is a little bit concerning. He had a great game. I got to give him credit. I came back and bounced back, had a pretty good game this week, but that shouldn't be a factor in terms of him being motivated to play well. So those two things that he just said kind of struck me there.
Aldo, how about you? As soon as you unmute, you can start talking. And you can't unmute.
Yeah, you're still muted.
You're still well. What? There you go. Go ahead, Aldo. Yeah, go ahead. Technology.
I agree with everything that Danny has said. This is a coaching staff that doesn't know how to get these guys fired up. I've said it since Matt Nagy has been coach in his rookie season, is that sometimes they come out of the tunnel really not fired up to play a great game, a fired up game. And sometimes these cerebral coaches like the Sean Desai's and the Matt Nagy's, at least they have those titles. Sometimes they forget the human element, and that is that even if somebody is making $10 million a year, they still need a kick in the ass. They still need ways you need to figure out ways to inspire them to go out there and play at a level that is beyond great. That is Bear football. And I'm going to use that term over and over and over again throughout this season, because the more and more I think about what Matt Nagy does as head coach of the Chicago Bear is that he doesn't preach Bear football. It's too much finesse. It's too much thinking. It's too much him being stubborn. It's not about innovation. It's not about firing up the players the way Butkus would come out and be fired up. It's not about, making big plays like we've seen so many Bears teams over the eons make big plays when needed. It's this docile, lugubrious, lackadaisical, lethargic. Oh man, yeah, I got the type of football that people don't understand those words and don't understand that football here in Chicago. It's time for that to stop and play real Bear football.
How do you spell those? I'm gonna Google them right now. Yeah. I'm not sure what those two words meant.
I'm not sure either.
Aldo, the walking thesaurus Gandia, joining us here. But I think you're right, because as much as we have to accept in a press conference that word soup of finding the why, and that's where we're at, and we got to go back. We have to listen to that. The players, if you go into a locker room and say that BS, they're just gonna be like, "What the hell is he talking about?" You can feed us BS, and then we kind of just have to take it. The players are just like, what the hell are you talking about? That doesn't fire me up. That what are you even saying? So I agree that there is a lack of, and I'm sure internally he's very passionate about the game. He was a player. He was a quarterback. There's plenty of clips of Matt Nagy, giving the business to people while he was a player. But as far as translating that into coach speak, maybe I don't know if it's carried over or not. So I'm going to present you guys the biggest question that I've seen in the chat room, and I just want to get your opinion on it. And I'll start with you, Aldo. Let's say you're the head coach of the Chicago Bears. Andy Dalton gets a clear bill of health. He's able to come back. Justin Fields obviously got some playing time today, did fine, got the win. He could have an entire week of first team reps. Who are you starting next week against Cleveland?
This guy.
Yeah.
It was crazy. I mean, you're constantly told, be ready. You never know what may happen, and it happened. Of course, Andy came out, and then I just got thrown in. So I think I was pretty prepared, but there were definitely mistakes made out there, and I'm just gonna go watch the film and learn from those mistakes. So yeah. Yeah, I think so. Yeah, he was saying for me to go on the field. I think so. Yeah. Just got to forget about it, and he just needs to know that I'm gonna keep throwing the ball. I mean, he's one of the best receivers in the league, and that goes for everybody. I mean, every one of my tight ends, running backs, receivers, if they drop a ball, I'm still gonna go to them, just because I've that much confidence in them, and how we play, because I see it every day in practice how great those guys can be. So yeah. Yeah. That was just me trying to get the ball back. I mean, I know I got the ball, I could think knocked out from behind me or something like that, and then I just saw it on the ground. I know I got tackled, and I was just trying to get to the ball, and that was definitely going to be a touchdown if I didn't get it. But I mean, I was just pure effort. I was just trying to do my part and help my team win. So. I got the first one at the end. It was just all man. Nobody was really open, and then I saw a big kind of wide hole open, and then I know, of course, first down wins the game. And I know the left end kind of grabbed me a little bit, but I just broke the tackle and tried to stay in bounds and got down. And of course, it was a big play in the game for sure.
Coach Nagy said that you've been studying the first team reps on film from practice, the one that What's that process like for you? What do you take away from that?
I mean, yeah. So when Andy's pretty much getting the reps, I say to play back to Flip, Coach Flip, and then I just watch the play develop, of course. And then after practice, we go back and we usually run through all the plays that the offense ran during practice, and then I would just go through it by air, and then we get a scout team receiver, and then he just come over and catch the ball for me and stuff like that. So yeah. I'm just anxious to see what I messed up on and, what I have to do better. Really, I think, me personally, I didn't play well in my eyes. Of course, I played well enough to get the win, of course, but I think there's a lot of room for me to improve. So I'm just going to watch the film and see what I need to get better, see what I missed, see what I, could have done better, and just work on that. No, not really. I felt like I saw everything well out there, and of course, having the iPads on the sideline, you get to see kind of a preview of the play and kind of what happened. So I'm just looking forward to seeing the film. I mean, yeah. I think it's more like when you're in the moment making those mistakes, it's more how you come back. But I think when you're evaluating the film after the game, you just have to, keep that in the back of your head. And when those situations might pop up in games again, you just know where to go with the ball and, of course, what to do to protection. Pretty much whatever you need to do to make that play successful and say whatever you messed up on in this game. So. Yeah. I mean, yeah, David's a dog. He's one of the best running backs I've played with for sure, and just his mentality, I love it. I mean, he has just that dog mentality, and nothing can break him. So just playing with him, he gives the offense, great confidence, and he's a great offensive leader for our team, and he's awesome for sure. Mm-hmm. No, I feel like I had more emotions last week when I was out there on the field, but this week I was just, just kind of calm, more calm for sure, and I was just trying to do my job to the best of my ability. So, of course, being the second string quarterback, you never know when that opportunity might come for you to go in, and it happened today. So, I just tried to go out there and play my best. Mm-hmm. I mean, yeah, I'm most proud of the defense, just the way they bounced back from last week. Of course, they got a lot of heat for last week's game, and they bounced back. I challenged the scout offense this past week. I was like, yo, we didn't do a good job last week giving our defense a look. So I tried to go out there this past week, and I tried to scorch our defense and just really just play ball with them. And I was trying to get all the practice team receivers together and tell them that we need to do better to get our defense better. They've definitely done it before. Right when I got here, I think I've thrown picks, a lot of picks in practice. So I mean, of course, I'm not scared to throw picks in practice. I just throw it up for sure. But nah, I mean, it's awesome seeing those guys go out there and do what they did, and they definitely helped the team win for sure.
All right, that was Justin Fields after he got put into the game in the late in the first half, played the entire second half. If Justin stops talking over me, I can get on to this show. Danny, I'm going to ask you the same question I asked Aldo. If you had the choice, you were the Bears coach, and you had a healthy Andy Dalton and a healthy Justin Fields going into the game against Cleveland next week, who are you starting?
Well, John, I'm on the record saying that I would have started Fields from day one, from week one. And I felt like he just gives them the better chance to be successful on offense and gives them just more options, especially when you get into that red zone. And a case in point today, was that 39 where everything bogged down. He had no time to really go through his progression, just kind of tuck the ball. And with his athletic ability, got a first down, continued the drive, and pretty much then helped the Bears go ahead and run the clock out and win the game. So, if that's Dalton back there, if that's Nick Foles back there, that's probably most likely a sack or incompletion, ball kicked back to the Bengals, and who knows what happens, right? But so I'm on a record. So I can't really, even though Dalton was playing well today in the first half, So I kind of felt bad that he got hurt on a game that he was, versus his former teammates, his former team, and then it was playing well. But I'm on record, so I'm going to stick to my guns saying, for me, Justin Fields would have been my week 1 starter.
Let's make that let's just make that a triple threat, because I'd also start Justin Fields. I would have started him week 1. Everything that you just said, completely on point, because when things break down, he can make things happen with his legs. Now, there are going to be rookie mistakes. Let's not act like there aren't going to be rookie mistakes. But the upside, and if you need a spark and you need a home run kind of play, if you're asking me who's more likely to do that, Andy Dalton or Justin Fields, I'm going to say Justin Fields every time. So he can give you that spark that the offense needs. You can do a little more of that. Now, I'm sure they didn't go into this game thinking, hey, let's run some RPO, because they thought Andy Dalton was going to be the one who was going to be the starting quarterback. Maybe whenever you devise a plan around Justin Fields, you have some option plays, you have some read pass options, and you can do a lot more to kind of open up this offense to maybe get the tight ends involved, to get the ball to Allen Robinson a little bit more. So we'll see if Justin Fields is the starter next week, because we still got to see how serious this injury is with Andy Dalton, because even if there's a sprained MCL or there's any kind of ligament that's sprained, that can knock you out for a couple weeks. He was playing on adrenaline when he came back in, and I don't know. I guess he didn't go into the locker room and get shot up with Toradol or anything like that. So we'll see how that progresses, if that knee stiffens up, and how mobile he is moving forward. So we could see Justin Fields in just out of necessity against the Cleveland Browns next week.
The one thing I do want to point out, though, guys, sorry to interrupt there, Aldo. The one thing I want to point out is with Fields, once he makes a mistake, typically when he's coached up, he doesn't make it again. So we saw a point in the game here today. Remember that Buffalo game where he didn't get that blitzer coming off the edge and he got his head almost taken off? Well, there was a play today where he identified pre-snap. He pointed out to the guy that was going to blitz off the edge. The guy was lined up as a corner, a slot corner, and he called him out pre-snap. Fetty was called for a false start, but that corner came off the edge, and so he identified pre-snap. So that's something that he's learned, guys, from the preseason to the regular season, is helping pre-snap identify guys that are disguising themselves as coverage guys, but actually going to be the extra defender coming in. So that's something that I saw him right there develop and get better at as well. Now, is he going to have rookie mistakes? Sure. That interception he threw, that was a zero coverage look by the Bengals, and then all of a sudden that linebacker just dropped back into his passing window and made a pretty good play on the ball.
Yeah, and I just wanted to add that the Browns today gave up 21 points to the Texans and Tyrod Taylor. One of those was a rushing touchdown, and we know that Taylor is kind of a poor man's Justin Fields, in my opinion anyway. One of those was a rushing touchdown to Taylor, and 2 of those touchdowns were passing touchdowns for Taylor. So to me, that means that perhaps Justin Fields can match up really well against this Browns defense, and all he needs is that week of practice, like you guys have been talking about. Plus, also, I think it would be advantageous for Nagy not to announce who's going to be the starter, tell the team who's going to start, or at least tell the quarterbacks in the offensive room who's going to start, and say we're going to make sure that Andy is 100% healthy, so we're going to sit him this week. But we don't want the opposition to know that Justin Fields is going to start the game. That way they spend a couple of hours a day preparing for Andy Dalton and looking at that film and wasting their time doing that. So I feel that it should be Justin Fields. Don't announce it immediately, as some people in the media already are on Twitter demanding that Nagy should have, at this press conference today, said that Justin Fields is going to start next week. No. It's a tiny, minute a competitive advantage to not announce that and take advantage of that, because you are playing at the dog pound in Cleveland, and so you need every opportunity you can get to get that edge.
Plus, Justin Fields is going back to Ohio. He's going to have some Ohio State fans in the crowd. He might get a little more pumped up, a little more juice for that game. He might get a nice ovation. So, we'll see how that plays out as well. But, yeah, definitely, like I said, week 1, he would have been my starter.
Also in that Texans-Browns game, I believe Tyrod Taylor got hurt, and even Davis Mills, their third-round rookie, got a touchdown pass in that game. So there could be some opportunities for some rushing touchdowns from the quarterback moving into next week. I do want to bring up something that Robert brought up in the chat, talking about that Jamar Chase touchdown and what happened in the breakdown in coverage. He says that Eddie Jackson was late to come over and offer support. I believe we actually have this clip teed up. Danny, can you kind of talk us through what happened here?
Yeah, a great point here by Robert here, because I agree totally here with him. Vildor, as first of all, Chase beats Vildor at the snap, right? At the line of scrimmage, does a great move to go ahead and get an inside leverage. But I think like Vildor, then, he kind of lets him go because he feels like he's got over the top safety help. And it just seems like Jackson was kind of keying on the quarterback in the pocket, was a tad bit late to come over and give Vildor some help there, whether he just thought Vildor had him, for a longer period of time. But to see if Jackson's a little bit, quicker in terms of recognizing what's going on here at the line of scrimmage, he comes over, he could have a chance to either make a play on the football, intercept it, or at least make a tackle and save a touchdown. So I do agree. I think Jackson there was a tad bit late in recognizing what was going on and then coming over and offering that second level support there.
Also put a hell of a block on Vildor after Jamar Chase caught the ball there. I don't know.
Well, and it's funny that, we've all been preaching that Eddie Jackson is a ball hawk safety. Well, what happens in week 1 against the Rams? He allows a touchdown to happen because he gets sucked in to a move by the receiver who caught the first touchdown. And then here again, we're seeing him play that center field role and not delivering on what his strength is. Now, again, as Danny said earlier in the show, Jackson didn't have a bad game, but that was a bad play. No doubt about it.
Yeah, and that's one of the plays that kind of got the Bengals juices flowing a little bit. Burrow's coming off of some terrible 3 for 3 in interceptions, and then you kind of let them back into the game there. I don't think against a team like Cleveland, and we talked about, the Bears looked especially bad because they were playing the Rams, who, by the way, barely escaped with a win over the Colts today. So let's also, if you're going to take that approach, you can also apply it to maybe the Bears looked a little bit better because they were playing the Bengals. I think that next week against the Browns is kind of in that midpoint. I don't think the Browns are quite at the level of the Rams, and I certainly think that they're much better than the Bengals. For me, next week is a very good barometer of where the Bears actually are. And we will see that, especially with who the quarterback is. If Andy Dalton is the quarterback next week, I think that'll be the ultimate test because that's a hell of a defense that's going to be coming after him. So that will be the big test for Andy Dalton. And if it's Justin Fields, it's a welcome to the NFL moment because he's going to be thrown in there against a really good defense. Not that I'm against that because I was not against throwing him against the Rams in week 1. I don't think you need to shield your quarterback and say, oh, we can't let him play against this team. You let him work through it. Let him play against other NFL talent. Don't wait until you think it's someone bad to throw him in there. So, although it is in Cleveland, so that it wouldn't be the ideal situation, but I'm not going to let that be the deciding factor in it. So, next week, do you agree? And Aldo, I'll start with you that against Cleveland, that's a really good barometer of where this Bears team actually is to get that week 1 out of the way with the Rams. Tweak some things and still get a victory over the Bengals, but there were still some things that if you would have done that against the Browns, I don't know if you come out with a victory.
Yeah, it's usually by week 3 or 4 that teams start to lay down their identity for that season. And so you're absolutely right. I think this game is going to be an excellent barometer of where the Bears are as a football team. Now, based on what I have seen the first 2 weeks, against the Rams, they really should have won that game. They were close, as we've talked about on a couple of occasions, John. They were close late in the third quarter. They were down by 6 points, and then the wheels came off because of mistakes. Today, they should have won by 3 touchdowns, but they didn't. They won by the margin that they did. But they didn't win by 3 touchdowns because of mistakes. So if they go into Cleveland and I believe play an error-free game as much as any NFL team can, they're going to beat the Cleveland Browns, a good Cleveland Browns team that a lot of people have picked to win the AFC this week or at least get deep into the playoffs. I'm not denying that this is going to be a tough task for this team, but if based on what I have seen these last 2 weeks, I do believe that they can beat this team and they can beat this team being the Browns and that they can beat them with Justin Fields in as long as they're not penalizing themselves, as long as Eddie Jackson isn't making mistakes in the defensive backfield, as long as Tayshaun Gibson isn't getting taunting calls, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Danny, you think that this team, the way that it's constructed now, can go into Cleveland and pull out a win?
Yeah, but they could, because personally, I think that the Bengals, the receivers core they brought in today, and with their quarterback Joe Burrow, I think talent level they're on par even better than the Browns. I'm not a huge Baker Mayfield fan. I think Burrow's a better prospect overall than Baker Mayfield. The skill level position that the Bengals have there at receiver is probably better than overall. If you think about Jamar Chase and the guys like Higgins and all that stuff, better than some of these guys with Jarvis Landry. Odell Beckham's not playing. They're talented up front for sure. The Browns, that is. But the key with the Browns, and this is what's for me, guys, it always starts up front. The offensive line. Are you going to be able to help control that defensive front for the Browns? And defensively, the Browns bring a hell of a running game, guys, with a two-headed monster and Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt. So the Bears are going to have to control that line of scrimmage up front. Today was a nice starting point in terms of what they did. We talked about earlier, those games, those stunts up front, playing some of that shell coverage. Are you going to be able to continue that next week? Hopefully Eddie Goldman's back in there next week. And that will be a big help and big presence up front for stopping that run offense of the Browns. But for me, it's all got to start up front. But yes, you build off of this defensive effort today. Okay, you continue creating some more turnovers and all that stuff. And now offensively, if Justin Fields is in there, get creative, Matt Nagy, utilize his strengths, utilize the play action, continue to pound David Montgomery, who to me is off to a great start this season. And then let's continue some ball control. Let's not get fancy with it. Let's not look pretty. Let's just go in there and get a win. Anytime you get a win in the NFL, I know some people are in the chat room are kind of poo-pooing the win today is against the Bengals, the Bungles, whatever they want to call them. Guys, winning in the NFL is tough, week in and week out. You'll take a victory whenever you can get it. So they're 1-1 now. You go in, you build off of this victory in Cleveland. If you come out there, guys, a lot of people are picking the Browns as a team that could contend for a chance to go to the Super Bowl. So, if you go in there in Cleveland and beat them, they might not be clicking on all cylinders right now early on in the season. So this might be a prime opportunity to go in there and get a victory from a quality football team. So, but everything for me starts up front with the Bears.
Danny, I wanted to ask you, David Montgomery obviously has been playing pretty well the last 2 weeks, especially week 1, but he earned every yard he got today. If Justin Fields becomes the quarterback, could we see an even bigger emergence of David Montgomery, because then opposing defenses have to respect the fact that the quarterback could run as well?
Exactly. That RPO option is going to give just that little bit more, slight tick of time there that's going to hold the linebackers, is going to hold some of those secondary guys. And that also, if there's a crease, if there's a hole, you give the ball off to Montgomery. He slipped up in there, and now he's into the second and third level. And we see how he can, his contact balance, his contact power, his ability to, that move, I know it didn't count as a penalty, but that jive move he did on Pratt in the open field. Mm-hmm. I think he's still looking for his jock strap, and that was a terrific play there. But he's got that type of shiftiness ability, and I think this guy is just going to continue to get better and better. He's running like a man possessed this year. Just strong breaking tackles, wiggling away from big, strong defenders and getting those extra 1 or 2 yards. It's huge. So you put a guy like Justin Fields in there. Now you run some of those RPO plays, and Fields either keeps it, and now it's like, again, split second that linebacker is going to hold his ground, because in case if Fields has it or does Montgomery have it, and that it's going to give more opportunities for Montgomery to get better and better and more yards.
One thing I did notice is that Damian Williams carries went from 6 to 2 this week, and I hope that continues to stay right around there. I don't know if upon signing him, Matt Nagy promised Damian Williams that he'd get 6 carries the first game, like he promised Andy Dalton he'd get to start. But let's hope that David Montgomery remains that workhorse back, because I think he's fully capable of taking that 20-25 carry a game workload. This is what he's been training for. You see, like you said, Danny, his contact balance is absurd. The guy will twist and turn and still be on his feet. It's almost it defies physics sometimes. So I hope that David Montgomery continues to be the workhorse, and they don't feel the need to do a shovel pass to Damian Williams or the end around, or let's just throw him in for the sake of throwing him in kind of thing that we've seen sometimes. To stay with that theme, sometimes there's no rhythm to the offense because they just randomly insert people for no reason. And just let's say, you know what we haven't done for a while? We haven't done a jet sweep to Damian Williams. We should probably try that. So it's just like I like you said, let's try to get some rhythm on there. Aldo, were you about to say something?
I just hope the Damian Williams jet sweep has not replaced the Cordero Patterson jet sweep from last year.
Not quite the same. but the same results though.
No, you guys are making great points on every topic that we've discussed, and I want to make sure that we get enough time here to talk about the play of two defenders, and there's more guys that we should devote time to. But first of all, Roquan Smith, I thought had a sensational game today, and here's his touchdown, interception, and touchdown.
Yeah, does a great job of just sucking in. And for me, he kind of baited Joe Burrow into that throw. We see him here on the end zone angle. If they show it here in the replay, he's kind of just drifting, and then just goes and jumps that pass, takes it off the athletic play to go ahead and make a guy miss in the open field, and then just, turns on the speed there down the sidelines and goes for a pick six. So again, this guy, as long as he's healthy, this guy's got Pro Bowls in his future, and I think this guy's the next Bear defender to be an All Pro potentially. But yeah, I mean, he had a great game, and I think hopefully the other guy you're going to talk about later on, Aldo, will be Jalen Johnson, because I think he's developing into a number one corner right before our eyes.
That's exactly the guy that I wanted you guys to talk about, because I was just so impressed with his game today. I mean, it was so sticky. It was so aggressive. It was so smart. I mean, we have now a true bona fide, it appears, early to say, so I hope this is not hyperbole, but it appears that we have a true bona fide number one corner, and that other teams are going to pick on the opposite corner. They're going to pick on Kilder, and they're going to pick on the slot. But every once in a while, when they want to take a chance against Jalen Johnson, they're going to pay the price.
Yeah, and I was going to say, if Kyle Fuller was still around, you might have seen Jalen Johnson kind of edge out that number one cornerback spot, and maybe Kyle Fuller takes that number two spot, which I wouldn't have minded, by the way, given the current situation. But Vildor's doing fine. But looking at it, you got a stud. What is he, 22? So he's got a little bit of a career ahead of him, and this could be a guy that is part of whatever the new era of Bears football is going to be. Whenever Trevathan's gone, and assumingly the Akeem Hicks is going to be gone at some point with the next couple of years, if not this year. Whenever they usher in that new era without Robert Quinn, possibly without Khalil Mack, that's going to be the guy that they build around. He's going to be one of them. And so I think that he showed his aggressiveness, he showed his skill, and on that interception, he just caught it at one of the most awkward angles. I don't know of anybody who catch a football like that, but it was a really, really impressive play.
There it is.
The thing for me is,
I'm sorry, Danny, I just queuing you up for this replay, Jalen Johnson's interception.
Yeah, the thing I was just going to touch on for me is his instincts. The way he can just drop back and kind of know where he's at in terms of his coverage. Has a feel for where his receivers at. And this play here he's playing trail technique here, and he's looking at the corner, at that quarterback all the way in the pocket, and just baits him into that throw, and goes and just uses his athletic ability to go ahead and jump that route and make that interception. The one thing with him is obviously staying healthy. We've kind of documented some of those shoulder injuries going back to his college days, and he had another one last year as well. But he's a physical corner. He's a guy that can stay in phase downfield with a cornerback. He's not there in terms of being done yet and accomplished yet, but he's on his way, guys. He's developing into that number one type corner right before our eyes, like I said earlier. And and then another thing is he's had some interception opportunities where he's dropped the football. Today, John, you made a great point. He does a great job of kind of body control and contouring his body to come up with that ball, and stretching out away from his frame to reel in that catch. But this guy continues to get better, and soon enough, although you're right, we're going to see a lot more attention going towards the opposite side of the field as opposed to Jalen Johnson, because teams are going to start noting this guy's able to take away their number one receivers. And again, not there yet. There's still some improvement left for him to get better, be considered a complete shutdown corner. But guys, he's growing in front of our eyes, and this guy's becoming a playmaker.
Yeah. I love it. By the way, Robert says that Johnson was face guarding. There actually is no face guarding penalty in the NFL. And a lot of times when you see that flag being thrown when somebody is face guarding, it's usually, or it should be, because there was contact being made. But you can, face the defender and kind of block their view from the ball. That's not a penalty in the NFL. It is in college football. Correct me if I'm wrong, guys.
Right, as long as there's no contact, you can go ahead and get in front of there and make a play on the football. And that football is equally the defenders as it is the offensive guy as well. As long as, again, like you said, no contact. And there was the broadcast team was saying that was a play on Vilder earlier where they were claiming that there was a pass interference. to me, that was within 5 yards. So within 5 yards, you can go ahead and contact the receiver, unless that's been changed within recent years, and I haven't missed it. But that was within 5 yards. He had some contact with the receiver, but at no way was he grabbing or tucking on his shoulder pads or his jersey to go ahead and impede the receiver from making a play. Again, the defender has equal opportunity to make a play on that football as does the offensive player.
Yeah, I will say, however, if you are face guarding somebody, you are much more susceptible to getting a flag thrown on you if there's any contact whatsoever. If you turn your head towards the ball, sometimes they'll let you get away with a little more contact because you were playing the ball and you were trying to come down with it, as opposed to if you're just face guarding it and you jump up and you make contact with your chest or hands or what have you. I think the ref would be much more inclined to throw the flag on that. But if you're able to do it without making contact, I think that's completely legal. Also, I do believe to talk about, as you were talking about the broadcast team, this is a side note, Danny, but they kept talking about like it was Joe Burrow was a rookie and it was his first ever away game, and I was like, that was just kind of odd. I didn't understand that. I'm like,
the only thing I think that they were trying to say, which didn't come across clearly to me, was his first away game with fans in the stands, right? Because obviously last year there was no fans in the stands. So, and the last time he had actually fans in the stands in an opposing team's stadium was in college. So I think that's what they were trying to say. It didn't come over as clear, because I'm like, wait, this is not his first road game. What are you guys talking about? But his first road game with people in the stands is what I surmised.
Yeah,
I'm not sure.
And that's what they meant, but it's just like they kept talking about, and I even think the term rookie quarterback did come out once, and it's just like, are we just all trying to forget that 2020 happened? Are we just all trying to pretend like, nothing happened that year? Nope, not even an NFL season. Joe Burrow didn't even play. He took a year off, and this is his rookie season. But
Sanchez was wearing white pants again, which he should know. You don't come to Chicago, especially after Labor Day, and wear white pants. It's just unacceptable.
Hey, whatever you got to do. I mean, Mark Sanchez, Chicago Bear legend, remind you.
That's right. He was Trubisky's tutor in his first. And Trubisky's
and we see how well that went.
That's
right. Yeah, Mr. Butt Fumble himself. Before we start to wrap some of this stuff up, guys, is there any parting shots you want to take as far as what you saw, what you're hoping to see, and overall where the Bears are at after 2 weeks? Danny, I'll start with you. And once again, I appreciate you jumping on short notice to pinch hit for Tyler.
My pleasure, man. My pleasure. I mean, for me, again, a win is a win. It wasn't as pretty as we thought it was going to be halfway through that third quarter. But eventually they held on and they went ahead and got the victory. But for me, it was just the improvement, the overall play in the defense. There were some breakdowns again we touched on the Eddie Jackson getting over late on the top there with that touchdown to Chase. But overall, I like the subtle little changes. I like the DHC being put in there instead of Marquis Christian. I like Angelo Blackson getting more snaps up front, a defensive line. I like the stunts and the loops. I like the blitzing of Roquan Smith. So, bringing that front seven, using that front seven to create that pressure up front, and then using that shell coverage to go ahead and kind of limit the big plays that the opposing offense can give you. So I do like that. Let's go ahead and build off of that. Obviously, the 4 sacks, the 9 quarterback hits, the 3 turnovers. More of that, please. That's the type of defense we saw in 2018. That's what helped propel this team to a division title back then. And I think, if you bring in a Justin Fields now, quarterback, now you get a little more creative on offense. You continue running David Montgomery, and now you start utilizing some of your outside weapons, the A-Robs and even Jimmy Graham, if you will, in the red zone. So just continue to build off this victory and get better. There are a lot of teaching points here on this tape here. It wasn't a perfect game by any stretch of the imagination. We're not trying to say that Bears are on their way to a division title here, but it's a good win. It's a win that you needed. It's a must win, for me at least. Because if you go 0-2, going into Cleveland next week, I think that you're up against it in terms of the making the playoffs this year. So 1-1, build off this victory. The one other thing is Robert Quinn, guys. This is 2 weeks in a row that we've seen him produce. We saw him, hopefully he's healthy now. Hopefully he's over that 2020, the season that we all want to forget, right? And now we can see the Robert Quinn that we were, the Bears were anticipating they were getting when they signed him away from the Cowboys. So 2 weeks in a row, Robert Quinn has dented the stat sheet, and he has popped on my tape at least. So let's continue to build off of that, and let's continue to create some pressure and keep making those turnovers.
And while you're on the subject, you're talking about tape. Go ahead and plug the Bear Truth because we want to know all about that show and what you might be breaking down this week.
Yep, Aldo and I will be on this Thursday night at 8 p.m. Central. I'm going to go over this game. I'm going to start breaking down some plays. I already got some plays I want to key down here. I know Jalen Johnson is going to be some guy that I'm going to highlight. Quinn and Mac and some of those stunts and loops up front, something I really liked. And I saw what Sean Desai did here this week that I'm going to go ahead and break down. But we basically pick out some plays here, some key plays, and we break down the tape and we show you guys what we're seeing, what the Bears are doing in terms of improving scheme-wise, player-wise, development-wise, all that stuff. So far we've had 2 great weeks in terms of the first 2 shows. So I enjoy doing it, enjoy breaking down the tape, and enjoy having a conversation back and forth with Aldo and with the people in our chat room.
Yeah, it's fun. I got to say, this was a huge, huge win for the Chicago Bears. I think they had lost like 4 out of their last 5 home games, maybe 5 out of the last 6. It wasn't a pretty end last season, or starting with that 6-game losing streak in midseason. It wasn't pretty. And so they weren't defending home field. And Matt Nagy said at his press conference late in the week, we've got to defend Soldier Field. And they did that. Now, I wish they would have done it for all 4 quarters. And so that's part of the problem. The other thing I will add is that the Bears are not who we thought they were. And that is, who knows what they are? There's so many identity questions with this team, and it begins at the quarterback position. So that's why it's important to just put all your chips in to one quarterback, and that quarterback, I think we all agree, and 99% of the people in the chat room agree that it should be Justin Fields. And while there's going to be the growing pains, there's going to be the offsides penalty, there's going to be a failure to pick up a blitz from time to time, but you did see him at one point out the guy that was blitzing, and unfortunately, the cadence count, he probably made a mistake with the cadence count, and that cost the Bears an offsides penalty. But you got to just make that decision and start arriving at who you are as a football team. And then on the defense, the identity is clear. You need a pass rush to allow people to make turnovers. If you're going to preach turnovers, it's a simple formula. You got to get to the quarterback as quickly as possible, disrupt the throw, harass him. At one point, Joe Burrow looked really flustered, and that was a key moment in the game. Now, credit to that young man. He came back and fought that flusterness and came back to make this a game. But the Chicago Bears have to find their identity on offense and have to consistently perform their identity on defense. And if they do that, then we should be a playoff team. If we don't do that, then we're going to be bitching and moaning about the coaching staff and general manager all season long.
And I have a feeling we're going to be bitching and moaning about the coaching staff all year long anyway, regardless of what happens. I know you probably, and I know I will, amongst many others. However, what I saw from this game was some flashes of what this team could be, and looking at some of the potential that some of these players have. So I get very emotional with the Chicago Bears. I think everyone would know that, whether it's coming off of a loss or on my shows. I get very into it, and when they play poorly, I get angry. So I think what's so frustrating about this team sometimes is you never know what you are going to get. You don't know what you're going to get game from game. You don't know what you're going to get quarter for quarter sometimes. So, and we've seen that, where a team that can have 3 straight interceptions can still be on the brink of almost losing the game. So I think that's what's most frustrating to some of these fans, and I think a lot of fans, is saying, you have that, you're able to do all this, yet you still shoot yourself in the foot sometimes. Or we've seen you play well on the defensive side of the ball, yet you just completely fall apart on other times. Or you establish the running game and then you completely abandon it sometimes. So I think what you're seeing as far as a fan's emotional roller coaster, it basically coincides with what the Bears are. An unpredictable team that you never know what you're going to get. Sometimes they impress you against a team they shouldn't, and sometimes they fall apart against teams that they should beat. And so I think that moving forward, this is going to be a very volatile season, because especially if Justin Fields is now the starting quarterback, because there are going to be rookie mistakes. There are going to be ups and downs to this team in 2021. They can be a playoff team, but they can also be a team that misses the playoffs by 4 or 5 games. And so to your point, and to what I just saw Bruce Ali and Walter Jordan put out there, there's always an identity crisis with this team. Are they last year? We thought the front 7 was going to have to carry them, and it turns out the secondary was playing better. Or was this going to have to be a running team, and all of a sudden the Nick Foles and Trubisky were throwing it 40, 50 times? So it really is hard to get a peg on this team because you don't know what the hell they're supposed to be. You don't know if they're supposed to be a smash you in the mouth, run the ball, play defense team, or are they supposed to be Mr. Finesse, just try to get big takeaways and throw the ball 60 times team. It's just really hard to get a handle on this team, and I think that's why it's so frustrating. But anytime they can come out with the victory, it's a good thing. All of us are rooting for them to win. Not one of us are hoping that they lose. Regardless of whether you're thinking you're playing chess with all this. Well, if they lose this many games, Nagy will be gone quicker. I can't think that way. It's hard for me to think that way. I want the Bears to win regardless of Andy Dalton at quarterback, Justin Field at quarterback, Matt Nagy as the head coach, Matt Nagy not as head coach. It's just hard for me to wrap my head around the playing this mental gymnastics or root for the Bears to lose. I can't do it. So anytime they win, I'm happy. I just know that they're going to frustrate me at quarter to quarter after every year. But play to play, absolutely. So with that being said, I want to make sure that everyone's aware of all the programming we got coming up on the Barroom Network this week. On Tuesday, we'll have another edition of the Bear Debate. Myself and Tyler Ellis, who will be back on the network, we'll be breaking down some of the biggest questions surrounding this Bears team, and there are plenty. So it's easy to produce these shows now, where he and I go back and forth. We each have 30 seconds to get our point in. It sometimes gets combative. It's always loud. It's always entertaining. So make sure you tune in for the Bear Debate. We shoot that on Tuesday nights, but you usually can get that Wednesday morning and late to mid morning of the video and audio download of that. Also, Buffone 55 coming back on Wednesday. Aldo, go ahead and interject there.
I was just going to say the audio version of that show usually comes out on Tuesday night, and then the video version Wednesday morning.
Oh, you can listen to it right away on Tuesday night, and then the video version we save the good part for you for the next day. And then Buffone 55, we're always live on Wednesday night. Alyssa Barbieri and I interview somebody close to the Bears opponent. This week we'll be interviewing somebody close with the Cleveland Browns, and break down that matchup, see what the Bears' chances are. And then of course the 555 segment where I have 5 questions I got to answer in 55 seconds, and then Buffone's Basement, where we dust off Aldo Gandia and we have another roundtable conversation. A lot of good programming coming up every week. And of course, Danny Shimmon's show on Thursday, breaking down the tape, the cerebral approach to the Chicago Bears. I'm just the loud approach to the Chicago Bears. It's the yin and the yang, but it's all good stuff. So we appreciate everyone tuning in to this show and all of our shows. And Aldo, you have one more thing to say.
Greg Gabriel tomorrow, after Matt Nagy's press conference tomorrow, Greg Gabriel, the former scouting director of the Chicago Bears for 9 years, worked at Hallis Hall for 10 years, actually. And he and I are going to talk about this game. And I got a feeling Greg is feeling really good about this football team. I think even after the Rams game, he said, I expected them to play the way they did, but I have big expectations for them the rest of the season. So it's going to be interesting to see how he evaluates this game and what insight his veteran eyes will have on this game. And by the way, if you don't know, he was Danny Shimmon's teacher, and so that's why we have some of the best analysts in the business in the podcast world.
Oh, legacy. Also, make sure you listen to Mike North on the Mike North Advantage. Is that on Thursday morning, correct, Aldo? I always love to hear Mike's take on the Bears and have him animated fellow, that Mike North. So yeah. Always good programming here on the Barroom Network. So once again, if it's your first time listening or your 50th time listening, we appreciate you. A lot of programming coming your way. But that will do it for this edition of Bear Football. We appreciate you tuning in. For Danny Shimon and Aldo Gandia, I'm John Buffone. We'll see you next time.
Bye.